Hey team, welcome back. So now that we have some of our validation in place, the next thing that we want to do is understand what happens now that we have all this validation set up. So in a nutshell, I want to see what happens if we try and get away with a stunt like this, again, which is when we passed a null project object. Okay, and I think that you all know enough to have a sense of what's going to happen now. But let's just find out together, right? And boom. Basically, our server is returning a 500 error, and it's saying internal server error, and it's actually giving us a message that somewhat readable. But this is nothing that that you can really make sense of. I mean, yes, it's telling you that this is required and it wasn't there, that this is required and it wasn't there, whatever. But you know, it's not really nice. But the good thing is that our validation is working, and at this point, at least, we know that we won't allow the user to pass any garbage to the database, because unlike the first time, this time nothing got persisted to the database. Okay, so now we're going to work on perhaps getting more or clearer information from the server. Okay, so for this we're going to go to the project controller, and here's when we're going to start wiring up some really interesting stuff that's going to help us modify the response that we want to get whenever we have an invalid project object. And keep that word in mind, invalid, because it's actually related to the next step that we're going to take. So the first thing that you want to do, if you want to start handling this a lot better than just a 500 error with a horrible stack trace error here, is that you want to use the add valid annotation. And this is basically what that means. We're passing a valid request body of type project. Okay, so with this alone, we're gonna get, or we should get, a somewhat better response if we try to pass on an invalid project object. And now that we're going to do this, now we're getting actually a 400 bad request, which is better than the 500 error. And now it is a whole lot more descriptive, because if you scroll down, it actually gives us an object that contains all the errors that we have gotten, and it actually tells us the field, and it tells us the message. Okay, so this is the field and this is the message that we set up in our project object. And I just want to show you, you can literally go back and match this up. And actually, you know, feel free to stop the video for a few seconds and do that. You know, just let it sink in. At least you know, you're gonna know exactly where this is coming from, and this is actually really good. Okay, so now that we have this in place, the next thing that we want to do is we want to use binding result. Okay, so what is binding result? And let me just make a little more room here so you guys can see better. So binding result is an interface that basically invokes the validator on an object. Okay, this is basically, it analyzes the object and it determines whether or not there are errors. And I'm going to show that to you right now, because it literally, the binding result object here, and a good way to test this is like if result, which is this right here, and you can literally call a boolean called has errors. So basically, if this has errors, we can return invalid object. And we're just gonna do this for now. although this is gonna crap out on us, and I'll tell you why. Because here we're returning a project object, and here we're returning a string. Okay, so the first step that we want to take in order for us to handle the responses from the server better is that we want to use a generic type here, and this should help us take care of this. And also we need to return a response entity, but now we can return a response entity of type string or any other type that we need to. So return new response entity of type string, and then we're going to pass it the invalid project object, and then we're going to pass it the HTTP status of BAT request. Cool. So now with this in place, we can have a better handling on the a better handle of this whenever an invalid object is passed on to the server. Because I mean, a 500 error message or something as massive as this, it is really not that helpful, right? And especially when we start wiring up a React application, we're gonna want to have errors that the React application can actually grab from the server and put on the front end, which I'm pretty sure you remember from the demo we were able to show. But let's just test this one real quick. And as you can see, invalid project object. Okay, so this is working, and it's looking nice. Now, since there's a lot of moving parts here, I'm gonna stop the video here, let you really digest this here, and perhaps if you wanna do a little more reading on binary result and add valid, you can do so you get more context. Because I know for a lot of you, this is the first time you're seeing these two here. So it is really important that you really get familiar with this. Right, so I'm gonna stop the video now, and then in the next video, we're gonna work on having a better response just than a mere string saying valid project object. Okay, thank you for watching.